My mother handed me a list of chores and said I'd be watching my sister's kids for free, or I'd have to pay their entire rent. I nodded, packed my things when no one was looking, and left before sunrise. The mess I left behind made sure they'd never try that again. Be honest, if your partner's family cornered you with a choice like that, would you swallow your pride and go along, or walk away and risk losing everything you built? I'm Sarah. I'm 27, and for the last 3 months, I've been living in my sister's spare room. Denise is 5 years older than me. She owns the house with her husband, Mike. It was supposed to be a short thing. I lost my job at the end of January. My company downsized, and I didn't fight it. Denise offered right away. Or maybe it wasn't an offer. She said, "Just come stay here until you're back on your feet." I packed up my 1-bedroom apartment and moved in the next week. They have twin girls, Mia and Harper. They're 8, loud, and always running around. I hadn't spent this much time with them before. The house is bigger than anywhere I've lived. There's a guest room for me, a little desk in the corner, and a view of the neighbor's fence. Denise said I could use the garage for my boxes. I only unpacked what I needed. From day one, there were rules. Denise sent me a list over text. Help with the girls, pick them up from school on Mondays and Wednesdays, help with homework, make dinner twice a week. Mike left the utility bills out on the kitchen counter, always open to the page with the totals. He never said anything, just slid them closer to my side at breakfast. Denise would text, "Can you Venmo for groceries this week?" Or "Don't forget to pull your weight." None of it was mean, but it wasn't friendly either. I didn't go out much. Didn't have money for it. I spent my days applying for jobs on my laptop, drinking coffee in the kitchen, and listening for the garage door to go up. Denise worked long hours in real estate. Mike was in and out, sometimes working late, sometimes home early. At dinner, they'd ask about interviews and remind me, "It's just temporary, right?" I always said yes. Sometimes at night, I'd hear them talking in their room, low voices, my name. I never asked what they said. I told myself I'd be gone in a month, maybe 2. Looking back, I saw all the signs. But at the time, I thought I was just grateful. Denise always waited until everyone was in the room. She stood by the fridge with her arms folded, chin high. The kitchen felt humid, like it always did after dinner. The twins' backpacks were dumped at the base of the table, half-zipped, a pink lunchbox spilling crackers onto the tile. I was rinsing plates when she cleared her throat. She didn't look at me at first. She set a sheet of paper down on the counter, flat and purposeful. Mike leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, not saying anything. He had that look he did when he wanted Denise to do the talking. The twins were both at the table, drawing in the corners of their homework, not looking up. Denise's voice was clipped. "Either you watch the girls every afternoon and evening this month, or you cover every dollar of the rent." She pushed the paper closer. I saw my name typed at the top, the amount in bold. The kind of invoice you get from a landlord or a lawyer, not your older sister. She watched me read it, her lips pressed flat. Mike's eyes flicked between us, then he looked down at his phone. The twins' pencils scratched faintly. I picked at the edge of the counter. My first instinct was to laugh, because it felt like a joke. But Denise wasn't smiling. She stood there waiting, like she'd practiced the speech. I looked at her, then at the girls. They were pretending not to listen, but they'd stopped drawing. I said quietly, "Okay." My voice sounded small, even to me. I tried to smile. Denise nodded, like it was a business deal. Mike glanced at her and then at the invoice, then left the room. The girls shifted in their seats. Ellie stared at the window. Sam traced circles around the rim of her cup. Denise picked up a sponge and started wiping the counter, right over the corner of the invoice, like it was already settled. I stood there for a second, not sure what to do. My hands were still wet from rinsing the plates. The faucet dripped. Denise didn't look at me again. She scrubbed a spot that wasn't there, jaw tight. The invoice sat in the middle of the counter, my name huge and black. I wanted to say something, ask why, or remind her I already picked them up from school 3 days a week. But the way she stood, blocking the fridge, made it clear there was nothing to negotiate. She wanted me to agree, or to fight. I did neither. I wiped my hands on my jeans and stacked the plates in the drying rack. The twins packed up their pencils in silence. Denise finally moved aside and opened the fridge, pulling out a can of Diet Coke. She didn't look at me. The can hissed when she opened it, loud in the quiet room. The girls' shoes squeaked as they left for their bedroom. I heard Sam whisper something to Ellie in the hallway, but couldn't make out the words. Mike's footsteps faded upstairs. Denise sipped her drink and stared out the window, her back to me. I picked up the invoice and tried to fold it, but the paper was too thick, like cardstock. I set it on top of the microwave, where I'd see it every day. Denise's handwriting was on the bottom, a quick, sharp signature. Not even a thank you. When I went to my room, I could hear the twins giggling behind their closed door. I sat on the bed and stared at my phone, reading the invoice again. The due date was circled in red. 5 days. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Upstairs, Denise's voice rose, then Mike turned on the TV. I closed my eyes and let the noise go on without me. The kitchen was probably spotless now. The invoice would still be there in the morning, right where Denise wanted it. Denise was sitting on the edge of her bed, folding her daughter's laundry into stacks. I stood in the doorway, holding the phone she'd left on the kitchen counter earlier. I waited for her to look up, but she kept folding, pairing tiny socks and pressing creases into leggings like she couldn't hear me. You said I'd just help until I got a job, I said. This isn't what we agreed on. She moved onto a stack of pajamas, smoothing them out. It's fair, Sarah. We're family, not a charity. I watched her hands moving, quick and practiced. I could hear the TV from the living room, one of those home improvement shows she always had on in the background. I leaned against the doorframe. This isn't what I thought I'd be doing, Denise. I told you I'd help, but I can't run your whole house. She stopped folding for a second, then picked up another shirt. Everybody in this house works, she said. You want to stay, you pitch in. I'm not asking for much. Before I could answer, Mike's voice came from the hallway behind me. He was carrying one of the girls' backpacks and a handful of mail. It's not hard work, Sarah, he said. He didn't come in. He just waited there, looking at me over Denise's shoulder. Denise, still not looking up, said, We're not going to argue about this. She picked up her phone from the nightstand, tapped a few times, and set it back down. You'll have a schedule. I just sent it to you. I heard my phone buzz in my pocket. I didn't take it out. Denise stood up, walked past me to put the folded clothes in the girl's dresser. She didn't say anything else. Mike stepped aside as she passed. I could smell the detergent on the clean clothes. The hallway light flickered above us. I could feel both of them watching me, waiting for me to say something more. I almost did. Instead, I nodded. Fine. Mike gave a half smile, like he was relieved not to be in the middle. Denise came back in, grabbed her phone, and started scrolling. You'll see the colors, she said. Mornings are pink, afternoons are blue. Just keep them on their routines. She didn't look at me. I looked at my phone. The schedule was color-coded. Every slot was filled. School drop-offs, pickups, lunch, after-school activities, dinner prep, bath time, bedtime. Even weekends were blocked out. It looked like she'd made it weeks ago. I scrolled through it as I stood in the hallway. Denise and Mike were talking softly behind me, not about me anymore. Just normal things. What to make for dinner, whether the girls had done their homework. I stood there longer than I needed to, phone in hand, reading the schedule over and over. The door to the girls' room was open. I could see them lying on their beds, headphones on, watching something on their tablets. They didn't look up. I walked back to the guest room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, staring at the blocked-out calendar. There was a message at the bottom from Denise. Let me know if you have questions. I didn't reply. I put the phone face down on the nightstand and lay back, staring at the ceiling. I could hear the muffled sounds of the house, pots clattering in the kitchen, the girls laughing, the hum of the TV. No one came to check on me. No one asked if I was okay. I lay there until I heard Denise call the girls for dinner. I got up, washed my face, and went to set the table. Nobody said anything about the schedule. We just ate, and I cleaned up after. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just picking up cups and wrappers around the couch, trying to get the apartment back to normal. Denise's laptop sat half open on the coffee table, screen glowing. I thought about closing it, but my name in the subject line caught my eye. The draft was simple. Subject: Sarah is moving out, room will be available, $900/month. The timestamp hit me first, 2 days ago, before she and Mark sat me down about boundaries and making things work. I stared at the date, then read it again. There was no maybe, no talk of working it out, just an announcement that I'd be gone and the room would be up for grabs. Like I'd already agreed. I scrolled down. Another draft, this one shorter, with Mark copied at the top. If she doesn't go quietly, we'll just make her pay. No greeting, no signature. Just those words sitting there, like a threat. I checked the time on that one too. It was sent an hour after the first. The chain stopped after that. The rest was Denise's usual mess of online receipts and job alerts. I stood there for a minute, hands still sticky from the soda I'd just thrown out. The apartment was quiet, except for the dryer thumping in the hall. My phone buzzed on the counter, but I didn't move. I tried to remember if Denise ever looked at my things, if she'd ever cared enough to hide her plans. It felt stupid to just stand there, but I couldn't stop looking at the screen. I closed the laptop and wiped my hands on my jeans. I tried to replay the conversation from last night, the way Denise had kept her eyes on Mark, the way he'd said we all needed to be grown-ups about sharing. None of it matched what was on that screen. They'd already decided I was out. The talk was just a formality. I thought about my boxes in the closet, the old photos in the storage bin under my bed. I tried to remember if I'd missed something obvious, if the way they'd started locking their bedroom door was about me, or if the sudden coldness at dinner had been a warning. I remembered Mark taking my plate to the sink without saying anything, Denise brushing past me on her way to work and not looking up. I walked into the bathroom and shut the door. I stared at my face in the mirror, waiting to feel angry or shocked, but it just felt flat. I turned the water on and let it run. I kept thinking about the words from the email. Make her pay. I wanted to believe it meant rent, but it sounded heavier. Like punishment for not leaving fast enough. I sat on the edge of the tub for a while, listening to the pipes rattle. I picked at the hem of my shirt and tried to list my options. I could confront them, but the emails made it clear there was nothing to talk about. I could leave, but I'd be giving them exactly what they wanted. The idea of staying, of pretending I hadn't seen anything, felt tight in my chest. I wondered how long they'd been planning this, whether someone else was already lined up for my room. I went back to the living room and glanced at the laptop again. I thought about taking a photo of the screen, but I just closed the lid and left it where I found it. I didn't want to give them any reason to think I was snooping. I wiped the table with a napkin and took the trash out to the bin. When I came back, the apartment smelled like detergent and fabric softener. Denise's laundry was still tumbling in the dryer. I could hear her coming up the stairs, keys jangling. I sat on the couch and waited, not sure what I'd say, or if I'd say anything at all. I didn't leave the kitchen after he shut the office door. I stood at the counter, staring at the last unread email on my phone. My hands felt steady. The twins were in the living room, fighting over the TV remote with that harmless, constant noise that usually drove me crazy. I let them be. I opened a new suitcase on our bed and started folding clothes. Socks, underwear, 2 pairs of jeans, work shirts. I picked out the old hoodie I wore when I first moved in. The zipper was stuck, but I packed it anyway. I didn't bother with makeup or jewelry. I went back into the kitchen. The family computer was on, left at the login screen. I typed in my password for the last time. I deleted my browser history, cleared saved passwords. I removed my login from Chrome and Outlook. Nothing dramatic, just a click here, a click there. I took my phone out and scrolled through the emails again. I snapped photos of the invoice, the email thread with the lawyer, the text from his sister. The one where she said, "We should have told her sooner." I sent every picture to my own number, then deleted the originals from the computer. I opened the drawer where we kept passports and birth certificates. I found mine under a stack of old insurance forms. I put it with the rest of the documents in a folder. I didn't check the twins' birth certificates. I knew where they were if I needed them. The kitchen clock said 5:33. I started dinner. I went through the motions: chicken nuggets, peas, potatoes. I put plates on the table and called the twins. They came in, still arguing. I told them to sit. They asked if Dad was eating with us. I told them he was busy. They didn't push. I asked about their day at school, who they sat with at lunch, if anyone got in trouble. They answered in half sentences, distracted by a cartoon on the tablet between them. I ate half a potato and forced down 2 bites of chicken. I rinsed my plate when they finished, loaded the dishwasher, wiped the counters. I sent them up for showers. I went upstairs and stood in the doorway of their room while they got ready for bed. One of them asked if I was mad. I said no. He asked if Dad was mad. I said, "Not with you." The other twin crawled under his blanket and turned away from me. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, folder on my lap. I scrolled through the photos I'd sent myself. I checked one more time that the emails were gone from the family computer. I texted my friend Lisa just, "Are you up?" She replied a minute later, "Yeah, what's up?" I didn't answer. I left the suitcase open on the floor. I set the folder inside, zipped it up halfway. I unplugged my charger from the wall and set it on top. I thought about leaving, right then. Walking out and not looking back. I thought about the twins. I thought about the way he looked at me when he said, "It's not what you think." I turned off the light and lay in bed. I listened to the quiet, the pipes in the wall, the twins, voices muffled by their door. I waited for him to come upstairs. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the last time I felt safe in that house. I listened to my own breathing until I fell asleep. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast. Denise stood at the counter, hair clipped up, fussing with her mug. She set a stack of papers by my plate as I sat down. "Morning," she said, not looking at me. I waited for her to say more, but she just pushed the papers closer with a fingernail. I glanced down. The heading said babysitting agreement. The lines underneath spelled out what I was supposed to do each night, how much I'd be paid, and how long I'd commit to helping out. Mike's signature was already there, his handwriting big and flat. Denise's space was blank. She slid a pen across the table. It's just to keep things clear, she said. We all need to know what to expect. I didn't pick up the pen. She poured herself more coffee and sat across from me. We're not asking much, she said. You're here, you have evenings free, and the kids love you. She smiled at her mug instead of at me. Mike came in, yawning. He saw the contract in front of me and nodded like we'd all agreed already. Works out for everyone, he said. You get steady cash, we get help. He poured orange juice, his back to me. Nobody asked if I wanted to sign. It felt like a formality, a box to check before moving on. I read the contract. It said I'd be paid $50 a week, less than before, with no mention of days off. There was a section about notice for termination, 2 weeks, or I'd forfeit my pay. Denise watched me read. You can take your time, she said, but we should get this sorted today. Her eyes flicked to the clock. I heard the kids upstairs, the thump of feet. After breakfast, Denise started cleaning. She swept the papers into a neat pile and left them by the stairs. Don't forget, she said before heading up. I took them to my room and left them on the dresser. I heard Denise on the phone later, her voice low and cheerful. She was in the hallway, talking about our new arrangement and everything's on track. That afternoon, I took out the trash. The bin was full old wrappers, coffee grounds, receipts. I saw a crumpled piece of paper wedged near the bottom. The print was faint, but I could read it. A cash deposit slip from 3 days ago. The name on the line said K. Smith. The memo said room rental deposit. The amount was $200. The trash was still warm from the kitchen. I checked the date. It was before Denise had given me the new contract, before she'd even told me about helping with the kids. The deposit had already been made. They hadn't just assumed I'd say yes. They'd already counted on me being gone. I put the receipt back where I found it. Denise called me from the living room. Could I take the kids to the park? I said yes, because there was nothing else to say. My hands smelled like coffee grounds and lemon cleaner. At the park, I watched the kids swing and run. I kept thinking about the contract, the neat space for my name, and that signature from Mike. I thought about the deposit, how Denise's voice had sounded so light at breakfast. When we got home, Denise was on the phone again. She ended the call as I walked in. Everything okay? She asked. Her smile felt thin. I nodded and told her the kids were fine. The contract was still on my dresser that night. I could hear voices through the wall, Denise and Mike talking, laughing. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling. It was clear now. They were making plans. They wanted me out, but they wanted to squeeze every bit of work from me first. They'd already started collecting money from someone else for the room I was still sleeping in. The decision had never been mine. I waited until the twins were asleep. They'd both fallen out early, one on the couch, the other curled against the armrest. Cartoons still played quietly on the TV. I stood for a minute in the hallway, listening to the rise and fall of their breathing, and then stepped into my room. I closed the door behind me, moved almost soundlessly. I'd already set my alarm for 3 a.m., but I didn't think I'd sleep much. At 3, the phone buzzed against my cheek. I sat up and pulled my bags from under the bed. I'd packed most of my clothes already, what I could fit into 2 boxes, and my duffel. I left the rest in the dresser. I pulled my laptop and charger, checked the power, and slid it into my tote. My shoes made almost no sound on the wood floors. I kept waiting for one of the twins to wake up, to call out for me, but the house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. In the kitchen, I set my keys on the table, right by the fruit bowl where Denise kept her mail. I didn't write a note. The keys looked small sitting there. I stared at them for a second, then opened the food app on my phone. I scrolled through old orders, Found Denise's usual payment card saved. I set up a delivery. 12 pizzas, the most expensive options, double toppings, extra cheese. I scheduled it for 7 a.m., the time she would be getting ready for her big meeting. I didn't leave a message. The order confirmation came through a minute later, and I forwarded it to her email and mine. After that, I opened my personal email and attached the scan contracts, pay stubs, and every email Denise had sent about my role in the house. I added a note at the top. For records. I sent it to myself, then to my lawyer's personal account, the one she'd given me when I first asked about custody. I checked the sent folder twice. I walked through the living room, past the twins, and paused at the front door. I didn't look back. I didn't let myself. I locked the door behind me and slipped the spare key under the mat, just in case. The air outside was cold for June. I put my bags in the car, started the engine, and sat with my hands on the wheel for a minute. The house stayed dark. Nobody stirred. My phone buzzed with another order confirmation. I turned it face down on the passenger seat. I drove until the sun started to come up. The roads were empty, just a few delivery vans and the glow of early traffic lights. At the first red light, I checked my phone. No texts from Denise, nothing from the twins. I let out a slow breath. I didn't feel anything. Maybe that would come later. I kept driving. The boxes rattled in the back seat. I thought about the pizzas, the way Denise would answer the door in her silk robe, the look on her face when the delivery guy asked for her by name. I pictured her sorting through the mail, finding the keys, and realizing I wasn't coming back. I pulled into the motel lot and cut the engine. The sun was just starting to clear the trees. I sat for a long time, then grabbed my bags and walked inside. The night clerk didn't even look up. I handed over my ID, got the key card, and locked myself in the room. I turned my phone to silent. I lay down on the bed, shoes still on, and closed my eyes. The hum of the air conditioner covered everything. I waited for sleep, or for something like relief, but nothing came. I just lay there, listening to the muted sounds of the morning. I put the last plate in the dishwasher and shut it with my hip. The house was so quiet it felt sealed off from the street. I went to get the mail, mostly as an excuse to breathe outside for a minute. The porch was still damp from the morning rain. When I turned to go back in, I saw Mike's work bag propped against the step. He was always careless with his things. Usually, he tossed it by the couch, but today it sat outside, half open. I paused. My hand hovered over the handle. I looked around, even though no one was there. The bag was fuller than usual, unzipped just enough for a corner of a manila folder to stick out. I could see handwriting on the tab. I glanced at the window, then knelt down and pulled the folder out. The letters, thick and black, spelled my name. Eviction notice, Sarah. I held it for a second, letting the words sink in. The paper inside shifted, and I saw the date, last week. I looked at the envelope stapled to the front. Inside was a typed letter, brief and impersonal. It was addressed to me, but the language was cold. Notice to vacate the premises within 30 days. There was a signature I didn't recognize, and below it, Mike's initials. I went back inside, folder in hand, and sat at the kitchen table. I spread out the papers. The details were all there. My name, the address, a legal reference number. It wasn't a draft. The form had been filled out and stamped. He had already filed it with the management company. I checked the date again. It was 3 days before the night he told me we needed to talk about the future. He'd been holding this over my head, letting me think I had some say. The conversations we'd had since then replayed in my head. His quiet nods, the way he let me keep cooking, keep cleaning, keep hoping. The eviction was already in motion. I took out my phone and snapped a photo of the first page, then the second. I sent the photos to myself. I put the folder back in the bag, arranging it so it looked untouched. My hands weren't shaking. I felt a flatness, like I was watching someone else's life from far away. I zipped the bag and set it back on the porch. When I came back inside, I listened for voices upstairs, but the house was silent. I checked the calendar on my phone. Mike had a meeting in an hour. I knew he'd be gone most of the afternoon. I sat at the table, scrolling through my photos. The words, "eviction notice, Sarah," stayed burned in my mind. I looked around at the house, at the little things I'd bought, the plant by the window, the blue mug on the counter. Everything felt different now, like it already belonged to someone else. I thought about calling my sister. I put my phone down. I thought about packing, but I didn't move. I kept hearing Mike's voice from 2 nights ago, how he said he wanted to work things out, that he hoped I'd understand. He'd let me stand there and apologize for things I hadn't done, while this was already signed and sealed. I took out a notepad and wrote down the document number. I circled the date. I wrote a list: storage unit, lawyer, bank account. I put the notepad in my purse. I kept waiting to feel angry or sick, but nothing came. Just a cool, steady quiet. When Mike came in later, he didn't notice anything. He smiled and asked if I'd checked the mail. I nodded. He dropped his keys in the bowl and disappeared into his office. I looked at his bag, still by the door, and then at the kitchen window. The rain had started again, tapping the glass. I stood there for a long time, counting the seconds, making a plan. The room smelled like bleach and something older, like cigarettes under paint. I left my suitcase on the chipped dresser and sat on the edge of the bed. I kept my coat on. I could hear traffic through the thin window, steady, like water. My phone vibrated in my hand, but I didn't look at it yet. The first thing I did was change every password I could remember. My bank, my email accounts, my work logins, the streaming services. Some of them made me do two-step verification. I let the text come through and typed in each code, watching the little green check marks pop up. I deleted anything that still had the old apartment address listed. I updated my contact info everywhere, even the pharmacy. My hands shook a little, but I didn't stop until I'd covered everything I could think of. My laptop sat on the bed next to me, still open to a blank email window. I stared at it for a while. I kept telling myself it didn't matter what I said, only that I said it. I wrote, "Denise, I won't be returning. All my things are gone. Good luck with your new tenant." I attached the files. The scan of their email, her and Mike talking about the transition and how they'd handle me. The fake lease agreement they sent me after I moved in, with the wrong dates and the typo in my last name. The eviction notice, signed by Mike, with the date already filled in the week before it was delivered. I CC'd Mike. I didn't add anything else. I read the email twice. I thought about signing it with something clever, but I just wrote my name. I hit send. The little paper airplane icon spun for a second, then disappeared. I leaned back against the headboard and closed my eyes. I kept my phone face down on the quilt. I could hear someone in the next room laughing, a TV playing something loud and canned. I tried to imagine what Denise would do when she saw the attachments. Would she open them first or read the message? Would she call Mike, or would he see it at the same time? I pictured her at the kitchen table, her hair pulled back tight, frowning at her phone in the morning. I pictured Mike at his office, seeing the CC, his eyes going wide. I tried to care, but I felt empty, just tired. I remembered to call my credit card company. I told them my address had changed. The woman on the line was cheerful, asked if I wanted a new card. I said yes, just to be safe. I checked my bank statement 3 times. Nothing strange yet. I kept waiting to feel angry or sad or something, but mostly I just felt relief. There was nothing left to lose. An hour passed. My email pinged, a reply from Denise. Just one line, please call me. I didn't answer. Let's talk. I turned my phone over and let the screen go dark. I kept thinking of what Denise said when she handed me the eviction notice. It's just business. Nothing personal. She said it like she believed it. I wondered if she would still say that, after reading her own words in the attachments. I wondered if Mike would still pretend it was a mistake. The motel room clock changed to midnight. I got up and closed the curtains. I brushed my teeth with water from a plastic cup. My suitcase was half unzipped, clothes in a pile. I didn't unpack. It didn't feel like a place I'd stay long. I lay down on top of the covers, shoes still on, and listened to the cars. I thought about my things, all packed in boxes in a storage unit across town. I thought about the apartment, empty now, quiet and waiting for someone else. I tried to picture Denise cleaning out my old room, finding the empty closet, the drawer I left empty on purpose. I wondered if she'd notice. I set my phone to silent and put it under the pillow. I didn't want to hear it ring. I didn't want to hear from them at all. I woke up at 6. I lay there, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and a little light coming through the curtains. I had 2 hours until work. I checked my phone. Nothing from Denise yet. I set it down and looked at the clock again. I waited. At 7:04, the first call came. Denise's name on my screen, the same little picture of her and the twins at the zoo. I let it ring. It stopped, then started again almost right away. When it stopped the second time, it was replaced by a text. Where are you? The twins are crying. We have all this food and no one to watch them. Are you serious? I put the phone face down. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. I tried to drink it, but my hands were shaking a little, so I sat at the table and focused on breathing. I could hear my neighbor's dog barking through the wall. The phone buzzed again. Denise called one more time, then immediately sent another text. I mean, this isn't funny. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. You said you'd be here. I ordered the food. I spent all the money, and now I can't pay the babysitter for Friday. I need you to answer. I set the mug down. I read the message, but didn't answer. I thought about her face, probably flushed and angry, hair up, pacing in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. I pictured the twins in their pajamas at the table, the smell of pizza boxes and cinnamon sticks, cold now. The next message was a screenshot. It was her Venmo account, a string of zeros and then a red negative balance. I stared at it for a moment. Underneath it, she'd written, "Are you happy now? What am I supposed to do?" I put my phone in a drawer and closed it. I sat there, listening to the silence. I didn't feel anything, not guilt, not relief, just tired. My coffee was cold. I poured it down the sink. A little later, I heard my own stomach rumble. I made toast. I didn't check my phone. I finished the toast, washed the plate, wiped the counter. I took out the trash. I kept thinking about the way she'd always texted me first thing, even before her husband. How she never said thank you, just assumed I'd show up. The way she'd rolled her eyes last week when I mentioned needing to pick up an extra shift. I remembered the way she'd looked at me on the porch last month when she said, "You know you're basically family. Family helps, right?" And then handed me a list of errands. I sat on the couch. My phone was still in the drawer, but I could almost feel it vibrating from the other room. I left it there. I knew she'd call my mom next. Maybe even show up at my door if she got desperate. I waited, listening for footsteps. Nothing. The day was starting to brighten. I pulled a blanket around my shoulders and closed my eyes. I thought about Denise's voice, sharp and desperate, and the sound of the twins crying in the background. I thought about her bank account, overdrawn, the cold pizza, the sitter who wouldn't get paid. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I just waited. "'Kay." Smith's car pulled up at 3. I watched from the kitchen window as she stepped out, sunglasses on, phone in her hand. She was early. I opened the door before she rang. She smiled, polite, but her eyes moved fast, scanning everything behind me. She stepped inside, suitcase wheels clattering. The twins' backpacks were on the floor, spilling out notebooks and snack wrappers. Mike's shoes were by the wall, one on its side. In the living room, a pile of laundry waited for someone to care. I hadn't touched it. "'Kay." Smith didn't hide her reaction. She stopped at the entry, wrinkled her nose, and looked at me. "Is this normal?" I shrugged. My voice was steady. "They're moving out. Sorry for the mess." She walked down the hall, saw the bathroom door open with towels on the floor. In the guest room, a sleeping bag was half unzipped on the bed. She looked at the closet, where 2 boxes blocked the door from closing. She turned to me again, voice louder. "I don't think this is going to work. I'm not moving in here. I want my deposit back." I nodded. "I'll transfer it tonight." She left, suitcase bumping against the wall. When the door closed, the hallway felt empty, but I could still smell the twins' cereal. My phone buzzed. "Mike, you left us stranded. The room's a mess, and now we have no help." I let the message sit there, didn't answer. I set the phone down on the counter and listened to the silence. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator and outside, the sound of Kay. Smith's wheels rolling over the gravel. I walked through the house, opening windows. It smelled like old socks and crayons. I picked up the twins' backpacks and set them by the door. There was a drawing sticking out of one, a stick figure holding hands with a bigger stick figure. I put it back without looking. The phone rang again. The school's number flashed on the screen. I picked up. "Hi, this is MS. Galloway from Lincoln Elementary. No one came for the girls today. Is everything okay?" I paused. "I'm sorry. Their father's supposed to pick them up. I'll call him." She hesitated. "They're in the office. We'll wait." I thanked her and hung up. I texted Mike. "The girls are at the office. School just called. You need to pick them up." He replied 2 minutes later. "I'm busy. Can you do it? You know my schedule." I didn't reply. I sat on the edge of the couch and stared at the wall. The house was quiet, but the mess was everywhere. I could feel the shape of it, the way it filled each room. I could hear Kay. Smith's words replaying in my head. I started a load of laundry. I swept the kitchen floor. I wiped down the bathroom mirror, erased the handprints. I moved slowly, not thinking about Mike or the twins or the empty guest room. The house was mine again, but it didn't feel like it yet. The phone didn't ring again. I imagined the girls sitting together in the school office, feet swinging, waiting for someone to show up. I wondered how long Mike would take. I wondered if he'd even go. I left the window open, let the breeze in. I listened to it move through the empty rooms, stirring the papers on the table and the cereal boxes by the sink. I waited for nothing. The house was quiet. Mike's car didn't come back. The girls' voices didn't echo down the hall. I stood in the doorway and looked at the mess, then at the empty space where Kay. Smith's suitcase had been. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anything. The day moved on without me. I was wiping down the kitchen counters when my phone buzzed with Denise's name. I almost ignored it. She'd been sending me short, clipped texts for days now, all about how I'd ruined her plans and cost them real money. I unlocked the phone. This time, it was an email forward with no subject. Just a single line from her above the thread. "Look what you did." I scrolled down. The landlord's name appeared first. "Unauthorized sublet is a lease violation. You have 30 days to vacate." I expect a written response. The message was short, formal. My stomach went cold. I read it again. Then I saw the thread underneath. Denise had written to the landlord, trying to smooth things over, I guessed. But attached was the email I'd sent her and Mike about the sublet. Details, dates, even my old rent payment receipts. Somewhere in the forwarding, she'd CC'd the landlord too. All the evidence, right there. I stood in the kitchen, phone in hand. For a second, I waited for some angry follow-up call. But nothing came. I checked the time. It was just afternoon. The house was quiet. I could hear the faint hum of traffic from the street. I scrolled back up and read Denise's line again. No apology. No question. Just blame. I walked upstairs to my old bedroom. The door was closed. I knew Mike and Denise were both at work. The room looked the same as the day I left. My old bedspread still folded at the edge, the lamp I bought at Target still on the nightstand. I sat down on the edge of the bed. I thought about the past year, the way Denise had acted like she was doing me a favor by letting me rent the room, the way she treated me like a guest in my own home after Mike moved in, the coldness that crept in around the edges. I called the landlord's number, the one at the bottom of the email. She answered on the third ring. "Hi, this is Ellen," she said, voice businesslike. I told her who I was, explained I'd moved out a month ago, and that I had no idea the lease didn't allow sublets. She listened without interrupting. She said, "I wish someone had told me sooner. I never gave permission. They never asked me." I told her I was sorry for any trouble. She told me not to worry. "You did the right thing by sending the email. I want good tenants, not people who lie." I thanked her. She hung up. I sat there a while, looking out the window at the neighbors' overgrown lilacs. My phone buzzed again, another message from Denise, this time with just 3 words. "Are you happy?" I didn't reply. Downstairs, I heard the mailbox rattle. I let the silence settle. The house felt empty, like it was already in between owners. Later that night, a group text from Mike popped up. "We need to talk. Please call." I left it unread. I knew what would happen next. Denise and Mike would scramble, try to strike some deal. Maybe they'd blame me. Maybe they'd try to stay. But the landlord's email was clear. 30 days. No loopholes. I lay on my old bed with the light off, listening to the faint creak of the pipes. I wondered if they were sitting together in the living room, arguing about who was to blame, or if Denise was already drafting some angry message to me. I didn't care. The room felt quiet now, like it belonged to no one. I closed my eyes and listened to the silence. The motel coffee tasted like burnt cardboard. I sat in the corner by the window, letting the sunlight creep up my bare arms. The air was cold, but I didn't mind. I'd slept maybe 3 hours. My laptop was open to a blank email draft. I clicked through to a job board and started scrolling, copying my resume into another application. My hands shook a little, but not from nerves. More like my body had forgotten what to do with quiet. I kept my phone face down until I heard the buzz. I didn't need to check the name. The preview line was short. "We're out. Hope you're happy." I pressed my thumb on the screen, held it for a second, and hit archive. The message disappeared. I put the phone under my thigh and looked back at the job portal. The front desk clerk came in and switched out the coffee pot. She glanced at me, maybe a little curious, but didn't say anything. I'd checked in the night before with one tote bag and a laptop case. I wondered what story she'd made up for me. It didn't matter. A couple came in and sat at the next table, shuffling breakfast plates. I heard them talk about gas prices, a kid's text message, nothing that stuck. It felt like the world had reset to some normal I'd never been invited to. I submitted another application, then another. For a minute, I stared out the window at the empty parking lot. The sky was so bright it hurt my eyes. I'd packed up last night in under 15 minutes. There hadn't been much to take, just the things I'd brought into the house, clothes from the bottom drawer, toiletries squeezed into a plastic bag. I left the key in the mailbox, wiped the kitchen counter with a paper towel, and walked out. The only thing I left behind was the envelope with the bank statements, circled in red. I pictured Denise opening it, her face going flat, the way she used to when she realized something had slipped out of her control. If she called again, I wouldn't answer. I didn't owe her a reply. The only thing I let myself feel, sitting there, was how quiet it had become. No footsteps overhead, no doors slamming, no voices rising in the hall. I finished my coffee, checked my inbox again. One message from a recruiter, an automated response. Not urgent. Someone turned the TV on in the breakfast lounge. The volume stayed low, just enough to hear the anchors reading headlines. I listened to the names, places, disasters. None of it touched me. I sent another application, then closed my laptop. I thought about the house. I wondered if Denise and Mark had already left, or if they'd waited until daylight. I pictured the empty driveway, the open garage, the fridge half cleaned out. I knew I wouldn't go back. There was nothing left for me there, except for empty rooms and the echo of their voices behind closed doors. I checked my phone one more time. No new messages. I slid it back in my bag. I had a list of names to call, old friends I hadn't spoken to in months. I'd make the calls later, maybe after lunch. For now, it was enough to sit in the sunlight, with my back to the wall, and not have to answer to anyone. A cleaning cart rolled past the window, rattling. The woman pushing it didn't look up. I watched her disappear around the corner, her head bent, her hands moving methodically. I envied her a little. She had a job to do. She knew what came next. Outside, the wind picked up. I saw a plastic bag drift across the parking lot, get caught under a car, and flatten. I stood up stretched and walked back to my room. I locked the door behind me and sat on the edge of the bed, my resume open again, cursor blinking. I started typing another cover letter, line by line, like nothing had happened. I moved my boxes myself, one Uber ride at a time. The studio was on the 3rd floor, above a laundromat, nothing fancy. The first night, I sat on the floor and ate toast from a paper towel. I didn't bring much, some clothes, a few kitchen things, my laptop, 3 photo frames. I left the rest in the old place. Denise sent one last text about a missing blender. I didn't answer. The lease was in my name only. No shared Wi-Fi passwords, no group chats for chores. The silence felt strange, but not empty. I changed my number the next morning. I didn't update my address with Denise or Mike. They posted a photo of their new apartment on Facebook, a 3-bedroom, all white walls and brand new furniture. I looked at it for a minute, then blocked them both. I kept working. The twins' school sent a formal email, thanking me for timely communication and wishing my family. I ignored it. Nobody called. Nobody dropped by. The landlord gave me a set of keys and never asked any questions. The rest of that month went by in a kind of routine. Work, groceries, walks around the block after dark. I learned when the machines downstairs were loudest. I bought blackout curtains. My mother sent a text on my birthday. It was short. I replied, "Thanks, hope you're well." She didn't answer after that. I went through my savings, but I kept the lights on. I found a cheap table for the kitchen, built it myself. I slept better than I thought I would. I didn't hear from Denise, Mike, or the twins again. The quiet stayed, and I learned to let it. 3 months passed without much noise. I kept to my routines. When a work came home, made dinner for myself. Most evenings, I didn't think about Denise or Mike at all. Some days I did, but it was like remembering an old scar. I ran into Kay Smith at the grocery store on a Thursday. She was pushing a cart with 2 bags of flour and some grapes. She looked tired but more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. She stopped me by the frozen vegetables. Said she'd finally called Mike and Denise about getting her deposit back, and when they stalled, she threatened small claims court. She got a check 2 days later. She laughed about it, but not loudly. I asked if she'd heard anything else about them. She nodded, kept her voice low. Denise and Mike moved in with his parents in Westlake. Not sure if it was temporary or not. She hadn't seen the twins since the move. Neither had I. I tried not to think about them, but every now and then I'd look at the old group photo on my phone and wonder if they ever talk about the night everything changed. I wondered if they blame me, or if they even remember details, or just the feeling of something breaking. I told Kay Smith I hoped things got easier for her. She smiled, said she was applying for a better job, something downtown. We parted in the parking lot, both acting like the conversation had been about groceries. The apartment is quieter now. I read more. Sometimes I hear children playing in the courtyard, and I listen for their voices, but it's always someone else. It still surprises me how quickly people you trust can turn into strangers when money or pride gets involved. Have you ever had someone close to you cross a line you thought was unbreakable? I wonder what most people would do if their own family drew up an ultimatum like mine. Would you fight back quietly, or just let them win and leave for good? I know some people think family is everything, but sometimes blood isn't enough to buy your silence. Where do you set the boundary when the people who raised you start seeing you as a problem to solve or a resource to exploit? I keep replaying that moment at the table. What if I'd said nothing or accepted their terms? Would things have worked out differently, or would I have just been handing them permission to do it again? If you've been through something even half as messy, I want to hear about it. Let me know what you think I should have done. Maybe you'd have made a different call. If you're interested in hearing more stories like this, you can subscribe and like so you don't miss the next one. I'll be reading the comments. Where would you draw the line with your own family?